Hello, everyone. I should be live. I hope that everything's working. I'm using different software this time. So, I'd like to introduce my new course on the intellectual life reimagined for the 21st century. Today, I started working on this course earlier this year, around the beginning of the year, and have been combining all of my experience inside academia and outside academia. As you may know, I founded my Halcyon Academy in 2020, and we have been going ever since, um, with almost 20 philosophy courses now. And what I'm doing here is, with this new course, is combining my knowledge and experience from my time at university and after, teaching inside and outside academia, but also how to lead an, a life of the mind, let's say, for the digital or in the digital age, so that we stay sane and focused throughout this time, which is inviting us to be distracted, to have our mind constantly distracted and all over the place. Because so one thing, for example, that I've noticed with students who come in, participants in our courses, is that very often they are obviously drawn to, in our case here, philosophy, and drawn in a way that there's some, of course, they see a certain spark in it in this rather dreadful time, and the fire of philosophy, as it were, can be a guiding light. It can also burn you. But what I notice sometimes is that, in as good it is to be quite open in the beginning when you start out, there's also a sense of, and people are quite often overwhelmed, as it were. They don't know where to begin or how to begin, really. I sometimes refer to Ezra Pound here, who wrote in the cantos "Begin Where You Are." That also is one of the leitmotifs for this course. But what I also see with some of the participants is that they make all kinds of wild associations. While that can be exciting in the beginning, it is ultimately exhausting and doesn't lead you to lead a full flourishing life of the mind. Now, you have at your fingertip um, the biggest Alexandrian library ever conceived by man, and that should, with that metaphor, I think I have said what I need to say about the internet, which I believe at some point will also have a lot disappear from it. So, what we want to focus on in this course is how to, first of all, generate or create for yourself certain habits so that you can work in a focused manner, making the most of what is available to you, to us, to all of us, while at the same time staying focused and sane and not getting lost in the weeds, or hung up on the latest Twitter thread or the news takes or this, that, and the other. Um, and as obviously as you might know, there can also be a highly ideological worldview, which is accelerationism and the cybernetic ideology, which would deem it impossible to remain free because we're always just driven by algorithmic forces, etc. I don't quite think that that's the case, and if someone says that, then you don't really have to listen to them, because what you're talking to is just, by their own admission, an algorithmic force. So, by the way, if you have any questions in general on what we're doing here on this course in particular, just let me know. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you the link so that maybe you can just take a look at the website. I don't know if I can actually oh yes, I can. So let's go on to this website simply for the reason that I can show you what the entire thing is about. So here you can see me. So the course is directed at people who are either, maybe you're a PhD student or a bachelor student in philosophy, but maybe you are already in full-time employment and you are working on something on the side. Maybe you're retired. It's basically really for anyone who is trying to live the life of the mind and flourish while doing so. And also that to some degree, for those of you who also would like to start publishing. Now, this course is not about how to monetize your work, even though perhaps that is in the cards for some, or how to, let's say, make money online. But it's more concerned with, well, what Schelling said, that we have to learn only in order to create, so that what you learn and what you read leads to creation. So that it leads to something that you write, that you put out, and that has many different, also practical aspects. And something that I have heard very often is that some are quite often, and I remember this from my own beginnings, people are quite often overwhelmed where to begin at all, for example, when it comes to which medium to choose. So I knew quite early on that I'd like to make videos because videos let me teach. It's a simulation of a classroom in a sense, and if that's where you feel the most comfortable, then the medium that you choose should be video, I think. But on top of that, of course, one question we'll address actually is if you scroll down here, you can take a look at the entire course curriculum. And I'm going to go over this in detail. As I said, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to be okay. I have to check maybe if something's wrong with my microphone. It is probably because it is I'm not close enough to it. Speaking of equipment, as I said, I'm using a different software today, and the software does have a bit of an influence on. So ironically, speaking of which equipment and which medium to choose, I probably have to turn up the volume on this here. So you see, there's always so many moving parts when you do this. And this is and continues to be, for the most part, a one-man band. And yeah, the mic gain for an inexplicable reason was turned down, which was not really anything I did. So this should be better. And well, it could be a static sound simply because of the connection. That's something that I do not have any influence over. We begin the course with the question, what at all is the intellectual life? That's a short video that you can actually preview here for yourself. So this is publicly available. The next video is Curiosity Kills. Now, the German word for curiosity is Neugierde, to be greedy for the new. Yeah. We are all tempted, if we're honest, every single day to check what's going on in the world. But from this, we must refrain if we want to stay sane, I would say, and also if we want to keep focusing. Don't read too much. That is also very important. That's even, now, of course, with there's only a certain amount you could quantify that, you know, of what you can read every single day within a focused manner. And especially when it comes to philosophy, I would always recommend to read less, read in a focused manner. You don't have to plow through hundreds of pages and certainly not thousands of pages of commentary upon commentary upon commentary. I would rather focus on the most significant texts, as, for example, Plato's Politeia or Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. If you are interested in ancient Greek philosophy, for example, or Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, and try and work through those rather than plowing through everything Hegel has ever written, only to condense it down to tidbits in your own mind. So I would simply always recommend to read very little and read in a focused manner rather than trying to read too much. We're also going over how to read and take notes. As you can see, some of the videos in the beginning, especially, they're quite short. So again, that it doesn't overwhelm you. And then I ask you the question why you're here, and more on this in the course. And maybe the most important video essay in the beginning or for the entire course is leisure, or rather scolaire, the Greek word, as the basis for everything. And we understand scolaire as sufficiency. Self-sufficiency, yes, but also sufficiency as the final cause. Sufficiency not as something that's coming, as the Marxist materialists would claim, but something that you begin from. Yeah. So leisure as the basis for your intellectual life, and we are returning to scolaire throughout the course. In the next section, I'm going over with some remarks on Plato and Jean Baudrillard, on Plato's cave and Baudrillard's simulacra and simulation, on the hyperreal and the hyperdigital, how to exit Plato's cave, and how to think about the digital. So we want to make sure that we understand what the digital age is, what it is not, why it is not to be absolutized, for example, also, and how, though, really, and quite spookily, the digital virtual age is a manifestation of Plato's cave. And if you've never heard of it, I would highly recommend you to read E.M. Foster's The Machine Stops. If you've never heard of the short story, get a physical copy now. So I would also recommend really to get physical copies of the important books. We're then going to go over the question of finding your medium. This is now something that is a bit more practical. So maybe your medium is writing. Maybe your medium is making videos. Maybe it's more audio. And I go over how to decide for yourself what the main medium should be. And I recommend a few things here, how to go about that in the course. By the way, let me just mention this now, as a couple of people are now here and listen. If you have questions, let me know. I am offering this for now at this honorarium, and only once will I offer a weekend seminar on the 14th and the 15th of September, all mentioned here, from 6 to 8 p.m. UK time, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is what this should say. I'm apologizing for this. And the weekend seminar, which takes place in about 2 weeks, will be there mostly for you and the group to discuss in small groups on where you are, which habits you have. Maybe you can learn from the others, also that you meet others. So the first day, the Saturday, will mostly be you in smaller groups with other people, talking about where you are, what you're working on, how you go about this, where you think you could improve, what you might be willing to, what you might need to improve, etc. You can learn then what other people are doing, how they are going about this, etc. But on the next day, on the Sunday, we will then actually discuss more as a group together some of the theories. Maybe you have questions because you've listened to some of the videos here, or maybe you'd like to discuss one of the many thinkers that we're addressing here as well. And if you have suggestions also what to add, because what this is a growing course library. So I'll be adding to the videos as I think at this point it's about 32 or so. Could be a bit more, but let's say about 30. I'm going to add one on Ezra Pound, one on Lao Tse, sorry, here's my note, and one on ecstasy versus excess. One of the leitmotifs also for this course here is Meden Agan, the Delphic maxim, nothing in excess. And I'm also basing some of the work here on Sertillange's The Intellectual Life, which I will be referring to a couple of times throughout the course. So I also recommend that book. Then there's a bit more of a, so after, once you know which medium to choose and what to focus on, the medium that you choose is important because that's the medium that you will be focusing on in terms of publishing. Publishing, not with a view to building a tremendous, a massive following or an audience, but with a view to finalizing some of your thoughts. And in the moment of publication, by sending it off, you are invited, as it were, yourself to send off, to see off your work and let it return to you in this published manner, which is sort of reflecting itself back to you in a different way once it is actually out there. But we're also going to address here the Faustian pact with social media and how perhaps we could think of social media. YouTube is a social medium as well. So you are also here. So, what is it that we are? What kind of a Faustian pact are we? Are we? Are we entering in here? So here's again a bit of Goethe's idea of technology in the background. Goethe, by the way, is really the paragon for this entire course, and perhaps also for some of you, certainly for how I would like to live my life. I can only aspire to be a bit like Goethe. Could not compare myself to him, but as you may know, Goethe was a politician. He was also a lawyer. He continued to write legal exposés throughout his life. It took him how many decades? 4 or 6 decades to finalize the Faust. He was a theater director. He built Jena, the University of Vienna. He was employed by the Duke of Weimar. And so he did not spend his entire day only writing poetry, but rather spent his days politicking around Weimar. One of the examples I go into is that he had to figure out, and it took him decades to do so, whether the silver mines of Weimar were any good and should be reopened or not. So he was very much a man also of praxis. Now, the next section is on cultivating intellectual habits and virtues. Studiousness and temperance are not one and the same, but studiousness guided by temperance is the main virtue that any intellectual should espouse. Now, here there's a bit of a longer lecture on Plato, Aristotle, and Aquinas, but we must not forget, especially in this strange parasocial and parametaphysical world, we could almost say, or paraphysical world, where we can also easily forget the body, that we must also discipline our body when we work intellectually, especially if we spend too much time online. So this is quite a long lecture on, or video essay, I should say, rather than a lecture, on how to exercise, how to take walks, to not forget to drink while you work, to get up on a regular basis. And also, as you can see here, there's a video essay on Kant on eating, on certain eating habits. Kant is very clear about what to avoid. For example, because Kant worked on his own for hours and hours and hours every day, but he took a walk every single day, I think at 5 p.m. And he had very specific rules for how to and when to eat. He would avoid eating alone, for example. He'd recommend you not to eat alone, but to eat in company of others. And that you don't feast on your own, which is something that can happen if you're working excessively, maybe on something, because you've got to finish. And maybe there's a deadline that's coming up for a publication or so. But Kant is quite good on this, so I'm going over some sections from the Anthropology here. And then we go on to the great minds in education learning. This by itself is an entire course, I would say. It's a course on education and Bildung and Paideia, however you want to refer to it. I begin, of course, with Socrates and some of the Socratic maxims, for example, oida uden eidos, I know that I know nothing, but also the Delphic maxim that is valid for him, meden agan, nothing in excess. So first on Socrates, then on to Plato on dialectics, as we find it expounded upon in book 7 of the Politeia of the Republic, but also a bit of a longer essay on Plato, a video essay on Plato on anamnesis, on how the soul actually learns by remembering what it had already known in a previous life. And we then continue with Aristotle on Paideia, eudaimonia, and Scholae again, followed by a video essay on Eckhart and Nicholas of Cusa on learned ignorance. And here again, I will make very strong the need not to know, the need not to see everything, the ability to forget, the ability to be open only to what is specific to your to your work. Because what I will make very strong at the beginning of the course, especially, is that you must find your question, and that is what you must work on in a focused manner. And once you are at a point where you know what the work is that needs to be done, your reading habits will go in that direction. Now, after Eckhart and Nicholas of Cusa, we continue on Kant on pedagogy. Kant, again, has another essay, which is über die Erziehung des Menschen, I think. No, über die Pädagogik. So got the titles confused. There's in German, it's über die Pädagogik. In English, it's usually on education. So I use the the original German here. It's on pedagogy. And some of his ideas, I go over here. I then continue with Wilhelm von Humboldt and the University Ideal, followed by a longer video essay on Schiller's play drive, the Spieltrieb, which we find in the 14th letter of Schiller's letters on the aesthetic education of man. By the way, if you have questions, then do let me know. Nietzsche, for example, is very specific also when it comes to how and when to take walks and not to drink too much coffee. He, especially in his last, I think, few months in Turin, he was very specific about where to walk, what to avoid in walking, what to when to drink coffee, when not to drink coffee, and certainly no alcohol. You should know that also the Greeks, when they did drink wine at the symposia, that wine was not very strong. It was usually mixed with water, so it was not all too Dionysian. I then continue with a very important essay on Schelling's university studies, on his remarks that learning should lead to creation. All rules for study are summed up in this one: learn only in order to create. Only by his divine capacity for production is man truly man. Without it, no more than a tolerably well-devised machine. So that perhaps is also crucial, especially in our time. Look at this here. Ready-made knowledge can only be memorized. Knowledge is not truly our own until we are capable of reproducing the given content in a form of our own making. So the regurgitation machinery, that is this slop content that we're bombarded with every day, reactions upon reactions upon reactions, are, well, of course, not even the level of ready-made knowledge anymore. So we continue then with Nietzsche's remarks on active talents. What Nietzsche sees in modern man, 19th century Europe already, is that modern man, the last man, is not a reactionary, but is reactive in the sense that reacting from stimuli from without. So there's no, let's say, inner drive, or inner Spieltrieb, inner play drive that would lead one to create something of one's own, but we're waiting for stimuli from without. Yeah. So we then continue with a video essay on Emerson on self-reliance. Now, I have to point out that Emerson is particularly strong in this one, I think. And I want to point out that what I do here is I read over Emerson and also consider what he means by self-reliance and non-conformity, which is not this ready-made non-conformity that we were given in the second half of the 20th century, the non-conformity that was sold to the masses by capitalist corporations, but a proper non-conformity and self-reliance. I think Emerson is wonderfully strong on this. Now, what, of course, someone who must not be missed here is Pierre Hadot. Pierre Hadot reminded us, let me try and find the book. So, Pierre Hadot, Philosophy as a Way of Life. It was Hadot's achievement to remind us that philosophy was a way of living and not dry and dead theory. In the lecture, I'm going over some of the spiritual exercises and what to take from Hadot for us. And last but not least, there's a short but not so short perhaps. I think it's 18 minutes. A video essay on Heidegger on Releasement, on Gelassenheit. In I think it was a speech he gave in his hometown, Heidegger reminds us that that we can say at once, at the same time, yes and no to technological machinery, how we let them into our homes. And it's a seemingly very simple response to the challenge of technology. But in this simplicity, it is also, I think, quite strong. That makes especially strong, almost untypical for Heidegger, as it seems, human freedom. Yeah. And the capacity to say yes and no at once, not one after the other, not in a dialectical manner, but no, we say yes and no at the same time. Okay. 1 second. Now, another aspect that perhaps is important is to many of you who start publishing is how to get in touch with others and to find others who are also interested in the same things. And I go over a few ideas how to find others, what you can do once you actually have found the others, as it were, setting up reading groups, etc., how to get in touch with people, and how to engage in intellectual discussions online. Cheap owns, any kind of sarcastic remarks, etc. All of this, we go over that, etc. What to avoid, as it were. Now, in the final two sections, we go back to even more practical matters and how to organize your life and the time of work. So I'll leave it at mentioning that you should simplify your life, and I go over what that means, and also when to work, what the best time of work is given your living situation. What's the best time of work for intellectual work, and how you can, or in the final section, then the very practical question of what equipment to buy. So I'm not specifically recommending anything, except for a few tools that I've used. But as this is something I've heard very often, it's that it's quite overwhelming for people. Again, the approach is to keep it highly simple and to make it as easy as possible for you. So this is the entire overview of the curriculum, and you can take a look at the enrollment page, and here are some of the people who've come to our courses over the years and what they have been saying about us. And yeah, so leisure with dignity, sancta simplicitas. This, by the way, is also from Nietzsche. And I have to say also, by the way, if you have any questions, let me know now before I leave. And if I can answer them, I shall. So do ask your questions now. I'll stick around for a bit longer. Again, the link to enroll is this one. So first question, I don't know what you mean by that question, to be totally frank with you, but you mean there's only two options for interaction. There are 2 full days of seminar, yes. And if you want to take any extra private tutorials, then you may choose from the private sessions tier. That's plenty, I would think. And there are no essays. So this is not a university. This is not high school. I'm not marking your essay. You are not writing an essay for me. What this is not school. Yeah. What this should lead to for you is that you come in, you go through some of the content, or maybe all of it, and on your own, for example, and it will spark within you ways, as you would read a book, on the matter, so that you may begin on your own to start publishing. You don't need anyone's permission for it. And so to make it very clear, apparently this isn't clear. Finding the Others weekend seminar on the 14th, 15th of September. This is where you will be with me in a Zoom seminar. Here, there will be 2 private sessions with me, in addition to the seminar. Here, you get lifetime access to a growing course library and already now more than 30 videos. Okay? Thank you. So, let me know. Hi, Mills. Hi, Harris. If you have any more questions, anyone who's listening, let me know. Then I will try and answer them if I can. And let's just double check that everything is, yeah. Okay, I just made sure that the dates are correct and the time I now changed because this was here not correct. So say this again on the seminar. I only offer this once. After this initial weekend, the honorarium that we will ask for the course will be $479 for the self-study tier. Yeah. So only now, this is an offer, as an introductory offer. And on top of that, there's also the weekend seminar, 6 to 8 p.m. UK time, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the middle tier. If you'd like to take 2 additional private sessions, maybe because you're already working towards publication, towards a publication or towards publishing in general, then perhaps, let me show you, then perhaps this here, yeah, is for you. And again, what I've tried to do with this course is to bring together, to combine my experience teaching inside academia and university in a traditional setting. Also, I've been privately tutoring for many, many years now. And well, also have been teaching, of course, here and have been building a business with nearly no private, nearly no prior business experience. So the risks that come with it are, of course, also something that one should heed and one should be aware of. So I go into that a little bit as well. All right. So let me know if there are any more questions. I think with this particular software, which happens to be the YouTube software, not any external one, it's more direct. I think when I speak, there's almost no delay. So it seems to come out quite immediately. With the other softwares, there's always a bit of a delay. And I don't think there is one. So if you have any more questions, let me know. Then I'll be happy to answer them. I'm just checking. Yeah. So that's still going. All right. As I don't think there are any more questions, maybe I just mention who's joining us so far in the seminar. There's an teacher educator who also has a PhD in ballistic missile systems. There's someone who's a PhD student in, say, philosophy, broadly speaking. There are people who work in tech. There is, I can look at the student list here. Someone who actually works in a similar field, let's say, who publishes courses, and so it should be a very eclectic group, where what we're trying to do on the first day of the seminar is to give you enough time to talk with the others and have a conversation on how to form certain habits, what to focus on, how to go about your intellectual life. And there's probably a lot that you can learn from the others. And on the second day, we'll focus more on the thinkers that we discussed. So, for example, if you have questions on Plato, specifically on what's being discussed in the video essays, or on Schiller, Schelling, Baudrillard, Plato, Pierre Hadot, or maybe Goethe, then that's the second day. And as I said, this is an introductory offer. So this is on now, and in 2 weeks, it will only be available for self-study. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for for your support. Thank you, Harris. I hope that you can make the Aristotle course. And oh yes, but do reach out. You have my email address, so that's fine. And yeah, if you have any more questions and you see this later, then just leave a comment. I don't see all comments on YouTube for some reason, that they don't always show up, all of them. But in time, I usually get to most of them if they're constructive. If you have a question later on, just leave a comment and I'll try and get back to you. But Harris, you have my email address, so you may just email me, as you know. All right. So now I'm probably going to retire now for the night, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.